Something is happening inside your body every night between 2 and 4 in the morning, and you're sleeping through it, which is exactly how it's supposed to work. During your deepest sleep, your brain initiates a repair sequence inside your penile arteries. Blood moves through them in controlled pulses. The arterial walls flex. The tissue oxygenates. The smooth muscle practices opening fully. Your body has run this sequence every night since you were an adolescent. Not for sexual reasons but as essential maintenance. Like a hinge that stiffens if you don't use it. Your penile arteries are among the smallest vascular structures in your body. Without nightly exercise, they narrow. The tissue they supply begins to atrophy, and the response that used to be quick, full, and reliable starts to become slow, partial, and unpredictable. That sequence, the one running while you sleep, is called nocturnal penile tumescence. And the response that's supposed to be automatic is being asked to perform on infrastructure that hasn't been properly maintained. What I'm going to give you today is a combination specifically designed to support that overnight repair cycle. Not an on-demand solution, not something you take in the moment. 2 things, 1 tablespoon each, 30 minutes before bed. Pomegranate concentrate and morina powder. That is the answer the title promised. You have it right now, 90 seconds in. What I'm going to spend the rest of this video doing is showing you exactly why these 2, combined at this timing, address the nightly repair mechanism in a way that neither addresses alone, and why that distinction changes everything about the results you'll get. I'm Dr. Mei Anderson, 25 years of urological practice, with men's sexual health as the center of my clinical work. I've learned more from the men who sat across from me than from any study I've ever read. And one of the things I've learned is that the difference between a protocol that works and a protocol that doesn't is almost never the ingredient. It's the understanding behind it. So let's build that understanding now. Before we go further, if you're already finding this more specific than what you usually encounter on this topic, hit the like button right now. Not for the algorithm. Because it tells me directly that this level of clinical detail is what you want, and it shapes every video I make after this one. Like it now? Then stay with me, because the mechanism I'm about to walk you through is the piece that makes all the difference. Your penile arteries are not like the arteries in your heart, your arms, or your legs. They are roughly half the diameter of your coronary arteries. That's not an anatomical flaw. It is why erectile function is now recognized in cardiovascular medicine as one of the earliest and most sensitive indicators of systemic vascular health. When something is restricting blood flow anywhere in your body, the penile arteries show it first. Before you feel it in your chest. Before a cardiac scan would catch it. Before any blood test flags it. The smallest pipes reveal the problem in the pipeline long before the bigger ones do. This also means the penile arteries respond to improvement faster than any other vascular structure. When the internal environment shifts, when the conditions for healthy blood flow are restored, you will feel it here before you feel it anywhere else. That's not poetic language. That's physiology. And it's the reason the first signal that this protocol is working, for most men, shows up within 7 to 14 days as stronger, more consistent morning erections. Not because morning erections are the goal, because they are the most honest, unmanipulated report your vascular system can give you about what happened in the overnight repair cycle. Now, what is actually compromising that cycle? After 60, 2 things converge in a way that doesn't get explained clearly enough. The first is a decline in the production of a compound called nitric oxide inside your arterial walls. Nitric oxide is the signal your blood vessel lining generates to tell the surrounding muscle tissue to open, to widen the vessel, allow full blood flow, and sustain that opening for as long as the signal continues. Without it, the artery can't open fully, the nightly repair cycle can't complete, and the arterial walls lose the flexibility and responsiveness that decades of healthy maintenance built into them. The second thing that converges is an increase in oxidative stress. Essentially, an accumulation of cellular damage that intercepts and destroys nitric oxide before it can reach the vessel wall. Your body is still generating the signal, but interference is neutralizing it in transit. This is why men often describe feeling the response beginning, but not completing. Not absent, truncated. The signal fires, begins its work, and then gets neutralized before the vessel can fully respond, like trying to send a message through a line that's partially cut. Some of it arrives. Not all of it. These two problems, declining production and increasing destruction of nitric oxide, need to be addressed simultaneously. Addressing only one of them is why most single-ingredient approaches produce partial results. They either boost production into an environment that immediately destroys what's produced, or they reduce destruction while the production pathway remains suppressed. The percentage of the signal that makes it through doesn't change enough to matter. This is the biological reason the combination works where single ingredients don't. Pomegranate concentrate contains a class of compounds called punicalagins, and I want to be precise here, because this is not the same compound found in grocery store pomegranate juice. Punicalagins are present in meaningful concentration only in actual pomegranate concentrate or standardized pomegranate extract. What punicalagins do is twofold. They directly upregulate the enzyme responsible for producing nitric oxide in your vessel walls, essentially turning up the output. And they are among the most powerful free radical neutralizers found in any food compound, which means they protect the nitric oxide being produced so it can survive long enough to reach the smooth muscle and do its work. Pomegranate doesn't just increase the signal, it clears the interference, both simultaneously. A pilot trial published in the International Journal of Impotence Research found that men with mild to moderate erectile difficulty who used concentrated pomegranate supplementation showed measurable improvement in erectile function scores, with researchers pointing specifically to preserved and amplified nitric oxide activity as the underlying mechanism, not a manufactured percentage. A documented physiological finding. Morina leaf powder approaches the same system from the opposite direction. Morina contains one of the highest natural concentrations of L-arginine found in any plant food. And L-arginine is the direct molecular raw material from which your blood vessel cells produce nitric oxide. More substrate means more production potential. But Morina also contains active compounds called isothiocyanates, which have been shown in vascular research to suppress a counteracting signal called endophyllin. Endophyllin is the vessel tightening signal, the biological opponent of nitric oxide. In younger men, these two forces balance each other. After 60, particularly in men with any history of inflammation or elevated blood sugar, that balance shifts. Endophyllin gets louder. And it doesn't just reduce blood flow in the moment. It interrupts the overnight repair cycle, because it is holding the arterial walls in a state of partial constriction precisely during the hours when they're supposed to be exercising full flexibility. Morina suppresses the tightening signal, while simultaneously providing more raw material for the opening signal. Combined with pomegranate, which is amplifying the opening signal and protecting it from destruction, you are now addressing three separate failure points in the same mechanism, through a single combination. Taken before bed. Time to support the repair cycle that runs while you sleep. This is why the combination outperforms either ingredient alone, and why the before bed timing is specific rather than arbitrary. You're not just taking a supplement. You're loading your vascular system with the precise compounds it needs during the precise window when it's actively trying to maintain your penile arterial health. I want to tell you about a man I'll call Dennis. 64 years old, retired high school principal, came to me about 2 years ago. He was not in the category of men who had tried many things and felt defeated. He was in a different category that I actually find more clinically interesting. The men who had accepted the decline so thoroughly that they had stopped noticing it as a problem. He came to me for a routine physical. I asked, as I do with all men his age, about erectile function. He said, and I remember this specifically, "It works when it needs to." I asked him what that meant. He thought about it for a moment and said, "I mean, it's not like it was. But I figure that's just where I am now." That sentence, "where I am now," I've heard it hundreds of times, and it represents something specific that I want to address directly. The gradual normalization of decline. When a change happens slowly, over years, the brain recalibrates what it considers normal. Dennis wasn't in pain. He wasn't in crisis. He had simply recalibrated to a version of himself that was operating well below what his biology was still capable of. I put him on the protocol I'm describing today. We'll come back to what he reported at 8 weeks. Now, I want to address something that matters for a lot of the men watching this, because many of you have tried things before, and the fact that those things didn't deliver what you hoped deserves an honest explanation rather than being quietly skipped over. If you've tried pomegranate juice, grocery store, bottled, the kind sold as a heart-healthy beverage, and felt nothing from it, the reason is concentration. Standard pomegranate juice is diluted, often sweetened, and contains roughly 5 to 10% of the punicalagin concentration found in actual pomegranate concentrate. The active compound is present in barely detectable amounts. Drinking that and expecting a vascular effect is like taking a children's aspirin and expecting the pain relief of a clinical dose. The ingredient isn't wrong. The concentration is wrong. If you've tried Morina capsules and felt something early but nothing sustained, the issue is almost always absorption. Capsule form Morina is typically processed powder, where the oil matrix that carries the isothiocyanates has partially degraded. Pure Morina leaf powder in loose form maintains that matrix, and the 30-second combination with warm water activates the compounds in a way a dry capsule passing through stomach acid cannot replicate. The logic behind both of those attempts was completely sound. The execution variables, concentration, form, timing, are where the gap opened. And here is the piece that most men never hear, and the one that I believe explains more incomplete results with nitric oxide approaches than any other single factor. Let me frame it correctly, because it connects directly to everything I've described about the overnight repair cycle. The nocturnal penile tumescence sequence runs 4 to 6 cycles per night during REM sleep. Each cycle lasts 20 to 40 minutes. Your penile arteries open fully, hold, and then partially close. Repeating this exercise throughout the night. The cumulative duration of full arterial dilation during healthy sleep in a man over 60 should total approximately 90 to 120 minutes per night. That is the maintenance window your vascular health depends on. When sleep is fragmented, when you're waking frequently, when sleep quality is poor, when REM cycles are shortened by alcohol, late meals, or chronic stress, that maintenance window shrinks. A man getting 5 hours of fragmented sleep may be completing only 2 or 3 cycles instead of 4 to 6. His penile arteries are getting 30 minutes of nightly maintenance instead of 90. The protocol I'm giving you loads your vascular system with the compounds it needs during that window, but if the window itself is being systematically shortened, you're working with reduced time to apply them. This is not a reason the protocol won't work. It is a reason to take sleep seriously as a parallel priority, not an afterthought. The two are not separate levers. They operate on the same mechanism. Optimize both, and the results compound. Optimize only the nutritional side while the sleep side remains fragmented, and you will feel partial improvement, real, but not the full picture. I say this not to add complexity, but because the men who come back to me confused about why something is working better some weeks than others can almost always trace the inconsistency, when we talk through it carefully, to sleep quality variation. The protocol didn't change. The maintenance window changed. Here is the complete preparation. Every detail has a reason. What you are sourcing. Pomegranate concentrate. Look for a product where the ingredient list contains one word. Pomegranate. Nothing else. It is sold as pomegranate molasses without sugar in most grocery stores, or as standardized pomegranate extract powder from supplement retailers. Both work. Both deliver punicalagin concentration. If the label says pomegranate juice blend, or lists any sweetener, put it down. That is not what we need. Morina leaf powder, pure, organic where possible, loose powder form. Not capsules. The powder should be a vivid green, not yellow, not brownish green. Color is your freshness indicator. The active isothiocyanates degrade with oxidation, and color degradation is the first sign that process has begun. If the powder looks olive or khaki, the active content has diminished. Preparation. 1 level tablespoon of pomegranate concentrate. 1 level tablespoon of Morina powder. Combined in approximately 2 ounces of warm water, warm, not hot. Temperatures above roughly 65 degrees Celsius begin degrading the polyphenol in the pomegranate and the isothiocyanates in the Morina. You are not making tea. You are dissolving these compounds in a vehicle warm enough to mix fully, but cool enough to preserve what makes them work. Stir the morina vigorously. It takes 20 to 30 seconds to fully incorporate. The resulting mixture is dark, earthy, and moderately thick. That texture is correct. Consume 30 minutes before bed. On an empty stomach, or at least 2 hours after your last meal. Food, particularly the insulin response to carbohydrates, competes with the absorption pathway and reduces how much of the active compounds reach circulation. Now, the element that most people at this point never hear about, and the one that changes results in a way that's disproportionate to how inexpensive and accessible it is. Selenium. 2 Brazil nuts, eaten immediately after your blend. Your body's primary defense against oxidative stress, the cellular interference that intercepts and destroys nitric oxide, is an enzyme called glutathione peroxidase. And glutathione peroxidase cannot function without selenium as a cofactor. Without adequate selenium, that enzyme is running at reduced capacity, and the oxidative damage that pomegranate's punicalagins are working to neutralize is being regenerated faster than it can be cleared. Brazil nuts are the most concentrated whole food source of selenium on the planet. 2 Brazil nuts provide approximately 150 to 200 micrograms of selenium, within the clinical range shown in vascular research to meaningfully support antioxidant enzyme activity. I am precise about the number for an important reason. Selenium is one of the few minerals where excess intake creates real problems. Consistent daily intake above 400 micrograms can cause selenium toxicity over time. 2 Brazil nuts sits comfortably within the therapeutic range without approaching excess. Not a handful. Not 5. 2. What this adds to the protocol is a third layer of protection for the nitric oxide that the first 2 compounds are producing and preserving. Think of it this way. Pomegranate is generating and protecting the signal. Morina is providing raw material for the signal and suppressing the opposing force. Selenium is fortifying the enzyme that neutralizes the primary category of interference. 3 layers. All active overnight. All working on the same mechanism during the same repair window. Now what you will feel first, and knowing this in advance matters, because men who don't know what to expect look for the wrong signal, and conclude the protocol isn't working when it actually is. The first indicator is not improved on-demand performance. It is stronger, more consistent morning erections. This will typically appear within 7 to 14 days of nightly consistency. What you're observing when you notice this change is not a secondary benefit. You are watching your nocturnal penile tumescence cycle restore itself in real time. The arterial maintenance sequence that has been running incomplete is completing more fully. The tissue is oxygenating more thoroughly. The repair cycle that runs while you sleep is doing what it was designed to do. Do not skip past this signal. It is your body reporting, without interpretation, without placebo effect, on the actual vascular progress happening overnight. Morning erections don't lie. They are not the result of expectation or hope. They are a physiological event. And when they begin returning consistently, you are looking at objective evidence that the arterial pathway is responding. By 3 to 4 weeks, most men describe what I'd call a shift in baseline readiness. Not occasional improvement, a change in the default. Arousal leads to a more proportionate, more reliable physical response. Less cognitive overhead. Less monitoring. The sense that what begins will continue without requiring management. And that mental shift is not a placebo. It has direct physiology behind it. When your body behaves reliably, the anticipatory anxiety that was itself suppressing your neurological arousal signals diminishes. The nervous system stops generating a suppressing response to protect you from anticipated failure. The 2 systems, psychological and vascular, begin reinforcing each other in the right direction instead of the wrong one. Dennis, the retired principal I mentioned earlier, he came back at 8 weeks. I asked him how things were. He sat there for a moment, and then said something that I thought about for days afterward. He said, "I didn't realize how much of myself I'd stopped offering." He meant, and he explained this when I asked, that he had been giving his wife a version of himself that was edited for what he expected to be possible. Not dramatically, not consciously. A small withdrawal that had become habitual. Less initiation. Less physical ease. Less of the spontaneous, unguarded affection that he said used to be just part of how he moved through the world with her. He hadn't been aware of how complete that withdrawal had become until it reversed. Until he found himself reaching for her without pre-calculation. Until intimacy stopped being something he navigated and became something he participated in. I didn't realize how much of myself I'd stopped offering. That is the outcome, not a measurement. The return of an unedited self. Let me add one more brief picture, because Dennis represents a man who had adapted so thoroughly, he'd stopped noticing the limitation. But there is another type of man I see regularly. The one who notices acutely but feels trapped by having already tried things. His name was Vincent. 69, former architect, had tried 3 different supplements in the 2 years before he came to me. Each one had worked for a few weeks and then plateaued. He was not willing to try another thing that would do the same. He came to me skeptical and said so directly. I respected that. I walked him through exactly what I've walked you through today. Not just the what, but the why. The overnight repair mechanism. The 3-layer combination. The morning erection as the feedback signal. He started. He paid attention. At day 11, he called to tell me he'd had 3 consecutive mornings of strong, reliable erections for the first time in 2 years. Not complete resolution, he was careful to say, but unmistakable directional movement. He said, I can feel the direction has changed. That phrase has stayed with me. The direction has changed. It is not everything yet. But it is not the previous trajectory. And for a man who had lost faith in trajectories, that was the thing that mattered most. There is one more element I want to give you, and I'm going to be brief about it because it is a single, specific addition that amplifies the mechanism we've been building. Not a new protocol, not a product pitch. One thing. The combination I've described works through the overnight arterial repair cycle. The quality and completeness of that cycle depends on your arterial walls achieving full dilation during REM sleep. And there is a specific dietary pattern that partially constricts those walls overnight regardless of what you take before bed. Not obviously, not dramatically, but consistently and cumulatively. High glycemic eating in the 3 hours before sleep. Specifically, foods that cause a significant blood sugar spike before you go to bed trigger an insulin-driven inflammatory response that partially activates endophyllin, the vessel-tightening signal that Morina is working to suppress. You take the blend, you eat a bowl of pasta or a piece of cake 2 hours later. You go to bed, and a portion of what the Morina was doing is being counteracted by the hormonal aftermath of that blood sugar spike. The compound is working. The environment it's working in is fighting back. This does not mean eliminating all carbohydrates from dinner. It means moving high glycemic foods to earlier in the day and keeping the meal closest to bedtime moderate. Protein, non-starchy vegetables, fats. Not a dietary overhaul. A 3-hour window adjustment. For most men, this single timing shift measurably improves how fully the overnight repair cycle completes. I mention this not to add complexity, but because it is the variable I see most frequently in men who report partial results with protocols like this one. Everything is correct. The before-bed glycemic environment is quietly working against them every night. Fix that window, and results that were partial become complete. Here's what your protocol looks like starting tonight. 1 tablespoon of pomegranate concentrate. 1 tablespoon of Morina powder. 2 ounces of warm water, stirred until fully dissolved. 2 Brazil nuts, immediately after. 30 minutes before bed. Every night. No gaps. Give it 7 days before you look for any signal. Look for it in the morning. Pay attention to the quality, the completeness, the consistency across the week. That is your feedback system. Your body's honest report on what happened overnight. Give it 3 to 4 weeks before you draw any conclusions about the full effect on your sexual function. The overnight repair cycle is cumulative. You are not doing one night of maintenance. You are rebuilding the consistency of a cycle that has been running incomplete for years. That does not reverse in a week. It reverses in weeks, plural. Men who stop at day 10 because they haven't yet noticed the full effect are stopping 3 days before most men notice the first unmistakable signal. Stay consistent. Watch the mornings. Trust the mechanism. I want to say something before I close that is not about supplements or protocols. It's about what I've noticed across 25 years of sitting across from men at this particular intersection of their health. There is a kind of quiet competence that men in their 60s carry. A lifetime of knowing how to solve problems, how to show up, how to make things work. And when the body introduces a problem that does not respond to those same skills, that doesn't yield to effort or discipline or simply trying harder, there is a specific disorientation in that. The tools that built your life stop working. And the temptation, when that happens, is to stop bringing your full attention to the problem, to set it in a category of things that can't be changed. What I've seen again and again is that the body is far more responsive than that category gives it credit for. The pathways are not gone. The mechanisms are not destroyed. They are suppressed by chemistry that has shifted gradually over years, by interference that was never diagnosed, by a nightly repair window that wasn't being supported. These are not permanent conditions. They are addressable ones. You do not have to overhaul your life. You need 2 tablespoons, 2 Brazil nuts, and 30 minutes before bed. That is where this starts. And if you watch your mornings, your body will tell you within 2 weeks whether it's starting to respond. Subscribe to Vital Health Seniors. 1 video every week, built for men over 60 who want the clinical depth that a standard appointment doesn't have time for. Real mechanisms, real protocols, built around the actual biology of vascular aging in men. Not general wellness, not supplement promotion. The specific information that changes what's possible. There's one thing that directly affects how completely the overnight repair cycle I described today can run. And it isn't something you take. It's something that happens during a specific 90-minute window of your night that determines whether the 4 to 6 arterial maintenance cycles your body attempts each night can reach their full depth. Most men over 60 are unknowingly interrupting that window through something they consider completely unrelated to sexual health. I'll tell you exactly what it is, how it works, and how to protect it. That's next week. I'm Dr. Mei Anderson. Tonight, before bed, 2 spoons. Let's see what your mornings tell you.